Welcome back to the deep dive. We've got a really fascinating stack of sources today. It's this brilliant blend of amazing Mediterranean travel notes. Looks like they span about 40 years of journeys.
Yeah, quite a range. And mixed right in with that is some pretty high-level EU macroeconomic data.
Exactly. So our mission today is, well, we're deep diving into Greece, specifically Crete and Santorini, but we're immediately going to contrast its economic reality with one of its EU partners, Ireland.
Precisely. It's all about synthesizing, the subjective travel experience, the sights, the tastes, even the little logistical surprises.
Right.
With the hard, objective financial data that shapes the region. It gives you that 360-degree view, moving way beyond just a standard tourist guide. It's about getting a truly informed perspective.
Okay, great. So let's unpack this, starting on Crete. It's the largest Greek island, isn't it?
It is. And the fifth largest in the whole Mediterranean.
Just to place it for everyone geographically, it's just north of Gabdos Island. And that's actually the most southerly point of the entire EU mainland. You are really far south there.
And that location, it's really defined its economic story. I mean, up until the 1970s, the economy was heavily agricultural, farming, stock breeding, that kind of thing.
Okay.
But now, it's overwhelmingly service-based. Tourism is absolutely the main engine.
But agriculture isn't gone, right? The notes mention olive oil, wine.
Oh, absolutely not gone. It's still really important. Olive oil, wine, fresh produce, dairy and celery, they remain a significant part of the economy.
You can almost see that shift happening. The material we looked at really highlighted this very visible construction boom, especially around Shanaina. And it doesn't feel like just, organic growth. It feels driven specifically by building up tourism infrastructure.
And that's a perfect example of connecting the micro-observations seen in the cranes to the macro data we'll get into later.
How so?
Well, that construction boom is often fueled by investment, some of it facilitated by things like the EU's Recovery and Resilience Funds. So the need for tourist beds connects directly to European investment flows and absorption rates.
Interesting connection. Topographically, though, Crete is still pretty rugged, right? Huge mountains dominate the landscape, like the Lefkada.
Definitely rugged. Massive ranges. Okay, so let's dive into the practical travel stuff, particularly from the notes on Chenia.
Right. You've got that beautiful walled Venetian old town, exactly what you picture.
Postcard, perfect.
Yeah, but right outside the walls, it's immediately modern commercial blocks and residential areas. Quite a contrast.
And that contrast, it carries over into infrastructure. The notes really stress that the road standards are, let's say, noticeably below what you'd find in Northern European member states.
So if you hire a car,
you need to be really careful. Exercise caution. And another key point made was about accessibility. The infrastructure, especially footpaths and transport access, presents real difficulties for tourists using wheelchairs.
Okay, good to know. On the plus side, though, public transport is apparently frequent and pretty cheap.
Yeah, that's a definite positive.
Now, for those crucial need-to-know details for anyone traveling, cards, credit, debit, they're accepted everywhere.
Pretty much everywhere, yes.
But cash is still king and preferred, especially, I guess, outside the main tourist hotspots.
Exactly. It just shows how the day-to-day reality can be unique, even within the modern EU. And speaking of unique realities, there's this very specific but really critical plumbing situation.
Oh, yeah, the toilet paper thing.
Right. You absolutely must not flush toilet paper. You have to use the little waste bins provided next to the toilet. Sound like a tiny detail.
But it could save you, or someone else, a massive plumbing headache.
Precisely. Infrastructure difference.
Okay, shifting to the local vibe. Generally, the notes describe Greeks as, a very warm, welcoming people.
Very hospitable, generally speaking.
However, before we get to dining, the sources did include one quite specific social observation we have to report impartially. While hospitality is generally warm, the source material specifically noted that, and I'm quoting here, the local sentiment towards Jewish tourists is very negative. We're just reporting what the source stated.
Understood. Okay. Well, back on a more convivial note, the dining customs sound lovely.
Yeah.
After your meal, it's common to get complimentary things. Maybe some watermelon slices or a little mini chocolate ice cream bar.
Oh, nice.
Or maybe shots of ouzo or gorloki. Sometimes both. A bit of sweet and a bit of spirit.
That sounds like a great end to a meal. Okay, let's briefly hop over to that other iconic Aegean island, Santorini.
Ah, Santorini. Its whole identity is just pure geology, isn't it?
How do you mean?
Well, it used to be a single circular island. Then boom, massive volcanic eruption about 3,500 years ago.
Right, the big one.
Exactly. So today, The famous towns like Fira and Oiria, they're perched dramatically right on the cliff edges of the caldera, the remnants of that giant sunken volcano. It's often linked to the myth of Atlantis, you know.
And its economy completely reflects that global fame, right? Tourism is basically everything.
It's described in the notes as the very oxygen. Accounts for well over 90% of its GDP.
Wow. Over 90%. What's the rest?
A surprisingly successful local wine industry. They leverage the unique mineral content of that volcanic soil, makes for some really distinct wines.
And the beaches must be different, too, because of the volcano.
Totally different. They're either stony or they have that famous black volcanic sand like you see at Camari and Perusa.
But the water is still that amazing blue.
Oh yeah, crystal clear, aged blue. But a little warning from the notes, you need to be careful where you get in and out of the sea. The volcanic rock underfoot can be really slippery or just uneven. Find a good spot.
Good tip. And the sources gave us some really practical cost info, too. Car hire, like a small Renault Clio, was about 40 euros a day.
Okay, that's pretty standard.
And dinner for two, with wine, maybe around 50 euro.
Seems reasonable for a major tourist spot.
And this is a great detail for anyone on a budget. The house wines are usually cheap and actually really nice, typically around 12 euro for a whole liter carafe.
12 euros for a liter. That's fantastic value. Can't beat that.
Right. So that actually brings us nicely into section 2, which really highlights the sheer variety of holidays you can have there. The material covers trips from, like, pure relaxation.
Just lying on a beach.
Exactly. All the way to some pretty intense physical challenges, often in the same basic location.
Yeah, the sources lay out this extreme relaxation schedule. It's actually quite funny. They call it the inactivity days.
Inactivity.
It's not just relaxing. It's like a full commitment to doing absolutely nothing demanding. Wake up naturally, casual breakfast, stroll to the beach by 11 a.m.
Sounds good so far.
Back to the apartment for lunch, then back to the beach until maybe 6 or 7 p.m.
Yeah.
Dinner later, then wine and Netflix until 1 a.m. That's described as maximized recovery.
Maximized recovery. That's brilliant. It's like a mission statement for chilling out.
Totally. But then, using the same base, the Tornia region in Crete, you can have the complete opposite, the adventurous track.
Right. This is serious activity. Hiking the famous Samaria Gorge. That's 16 kilometers long.
And not just Samaria. The notes mention tackling 4 gorges: Samaria, Imbros, Eridina, and Theriso. Plus hiking long stretches of the E4 European Coastal Trail.
Wow. And for the real adrenaline junkies, there's even optional bungee jumping at the Eridina Gorge Bridge.
Apparently so.
Yeah.
It's amazing that one place offers such extremes. Now let's look at a completely different way to explore. The Ionian Sea Sailing Flotilla, from the 2010 notes.
Yeah, this sounded really interesting. The analogy they used was perfect. Flotilla sailing is like glamping on the water for beginners.
That's a great description. It makes it feel accessible, right?
Yeah.
And the Ionian Sea is generally considered pretty low skill level 1 sailing, mainly because there's hardly any tidal difference, which makes things much simpler and safer.
So good for relative novices.
Definitely. It only bumps up to level 2 if you decide to sail solo, away from the main flotilla group.
What makes it manageable, navigation-wise?
The wind pattern. It's remarkably predictable. Typically, you get a reliable breeze kicking up between about 1 p.m. and 5 p.m. each afternoon, so you plan your sailing around that window.
Makes sense. And the route covered some classic spots: Kefalonia, Lefkada.
And mythical Ithaca, Odysseus' home island.
The logistics sound amazing, too. Calculating the cost, 2,500 euro for the boat hire, just divided by the number of people.
Seems straightforward.
And the convenience when you dock in these little ports. You literally just step off the gangplank right onto the quayside.
Straight into a seaside restaurant. Often.
Probably for that 50 euro dinner and the 12 carafe of wine we talked about.
Very likely.
Yeah.
That image, stepping off the boat into a quiet little taverna, it perfectly captures that accessible, beautiful Greek holiday vibe.
It really does.
But that relaxed feeling, that ease you perceive as tourist, it rests on economic and structural foundations that are, well, anything but relaxed.
Okay, so this is the pivot point. Exactly. Let's pull the camera way back now and transition to the cold, hard, structural economics of Greece and contrast it sharply with its EU partner, Ireland.
Right. This is where the picture gets very different. Looking at the key forecast indicators for 2025-2026, Ireland's GDP growth is expected to be stronger, around 3.4% in 2025.
That's the forecast. Compared to Greece's, which is more moderate at about 2.3%. Still positive growth, but slower.
And the biggest gap seems to be in the job market. Ireland's unemployment is forecast to be incredibly low, around 4.3% for 2025, and that's a very tight labor market.
Extremely tight. Whereas Greece, while it's definitely improved massively since the crisis
A
years,
huge improvement.
absolutely, but it's still facing a much higher unemployment rate, projected around 9.3%.
Now, 9.3% is obviously high compared to Ireland, but do the sources give a sense of where that unemployment is? Is it mostly young people struggling to find work, or is it more spread out? The broader data suggests it's quite structural. There's certainly a persistent issue with youth unemployment, but also challenges in creating enough higher-skilled jobs outside of those dominant sectors like tourism and shipping.
Okay, and inflation.
Ireland's forecast is lower there too, about 1.6%. Greece is projected higher, around 2.8%. And that seems to be driven mainly by sticky core inflation, especially in services and wages.
Right. Now, the fiscal picture, government budgets, this is where things look maybe a bit more similar, surprisingly.
In terms of current performance, yes. Both countries actually managed to achieve a government surplus in 2024. Ireland had a very strong one, about 4.3% of GDP.
Wow, 4.3%.
And Greece, impressively, managed a surplus too, around 1.3% of GDP.
Yeah.
And both are projected to stay in surplus.
Which is amazing for Greece, given where it's come from.
It truly is. But, and this is the massive but, the legacy debt is the defining difference. It's the huge structural headwind Greece constantly battles.
Okay, lay out the numbers.
Ireland's public debt to GDP ratio is pretty moderate and falling. Expected to be around 38, maybe 39% in 2025. Manageable.
Greece?
Greece is carrying a devastatingly high legacy debt load, projected at 146.6% of GDP in 2025.
146.6%. Just to put that in perspective for listeners, that means for every euro, every dollar the country produces in a year, it owes almost 1.5 euros or dollars from past borrowing.
That's the scale of it.
So when you consider that enormous burden, the fact that Greece is still achieving a 1.3% surplus after all the years of austerity, that's actually a monumental political and economic achievement, isn't it?
It absolutely is. It shows tremendous fiscal discipline and commitment. But that legacy debt, it severely limits their budget flexibility. It means they constantly need external confidence, external financing.
Right. And there's one more big differentiator, the external balance.
Yes, the current account.
Okay, just quickly, remind us, what does the current account basically tell us about a country's dependency on the outside world?
Think of it simply as the country's P&L, its profit and loss statement, with the rest of the world covering trade in goods, services, and income flows.
Got it. So Ireland.
Ireland has a massive current account surplus, forecast over 12% of GDP. This is driven by its huge export machine, largely those multinational corporations. It earns far more internationally than it spends.
And Greece.
Greece, unfortunately, faces the opposite, a significant current account deficit, around negative 8.2% forecast.
Negative 8.2%. So fundamentally, Greece is paying out much more to the rest of the world than it's earning internationally.
Exactly, which means it continually needs to borrow or attract foreign investment to cover that gap. It makes it much more vulnerable to global shocks or changes in investor sentiment.
Okay, let's try and summarize this in section 4 then. The core strengths and risks for each. Ireland's strengths seem clear. Very strong growth forecast, that super tight labor market, and the huge current account surplus from exports.
Correct. Those are the big positives. But Ireland's stability really rests on a few key things. Its main risk is being highly sensitive to external shocks.
Like what?
Big changes in international corporate tax rules, for example, or a global trade slowdown. Anything that significantly disrupts those multinational firms that drive its exports and, crucially, its tax revenues. Its model is powerful but concentrated.
Okay. And Greece. It does have genuine strengths now, showing real resilience.
Absolutely. It's got steady, moderate growth. It has that strong fiscal performance we mentioned. Running surpluses is key. And it's apparently doing a good job absorbing the EU recovery and resilience funds.
Which drives investment, like that construction we saw evidence of in China.
Exactly. Connecting the dots again. That EU funding is crucial for infrastructure investment.
But the challenges remain huge.
Immense. First and foremost, that crippling public debt burden, 140, 150% plus of GDP. Then there's the large current account deficit needing constant financing, persistent underlying inflation pressure, and really serious long-term demographic problems.
Such as?
Low birth rates, a rapidly aging population, and the emigration of younger, skilled workers, the brain drain issue. These are deep structural challenges.
So the overall picture is pretty clear then. Ireland, faster, more stable growth driven by exports, much healthier public finances, but vulnerable to specific external shocks. Greece, showing impressive progress, especially on the budget, and benefiting from EU funds, but still grappling with that enormous legacy debt and some deep-rooted structural issues in the labor market and demographics.
That's a good summary. What a journey we've taken, eh? From the black volcanic sands of Santorini.
And the physical effort of hiking the Samaria Gorge.
And those gentle, predictable afternoon sailing winds in the Ionian, all the way to staring at a 146.6% public debt ratio that fundamentally shapes Greece's economic reality today.
And see how starkly that contrasts with Ireland's very different path to stability.
The sources, looked at this way, really show how travel gives you insights on two levels. There's the immediate sensory experience, the warm sea, the taste of Varanki, the charm of old towns.
Right, the things you remember from a holiday.
And then there's the structural reality underneath the economy, the state of the infrastructure, the social dynamics that you might only notice if you look closely or if you have this kind of comparative data.
That dual perspective, that's what gives you the truly well-informed picture.
Exactly.
Okay, so we'll leave you, our listener, with this final provocative thought. It's drawn directly from a philosophical point made in source material we reviewed. We read that, quote, happiness is found in the journey and rarely in the destination alone. And also that, quote, you should travel away from home to really appreciate the value of what you have at home on your return.
Interesting thoughts.
So the question for you is, how does knowing about this dramatic contrast between the immediate, often joyful Greek holiday experience and the very serious structural economic data of Greece versus Ireland, how does that change your understanding of the true value of home? And what does it mean for the journey you undertake when you really try to learn about a place beyond the surface?
Definitely something to think about.
Thanks for joining us for the deep dive. We'll see you next time.